Religion collapsed. What's next? Let's ask Socrates. So yeah, religion collapsed, but it collapsed because it failed us. It failed to make us better people, failed to make us better people. And one reason that happened, some time ago, religion stopped listening. Stopped listening to science, stopped listening to philosophy or psychology, and especially stopped listening to other traditions. Now, if you grew up in church, I did, maybe you've seen that. Discomfort at best, sometimes outright hostility to the wisdom of other areas of human experience. Somewhere along the way, religion convinced itself that it had a monopoly on truth, and religious folk stopped listening. And sure enough, wall ourselves off like that, stop learning, get all tribal, insular, myopic, collapse was inevitable. So, what now? What do we do on the other side of collapse? Maybe you sense, as I do, that there is beauty somewhere in the rubble. Maybe you sense, as I do, that communal and spiritual still matter in the human experience. So what do we do after religion collapses? Well, I think what we do is we start to strip down how we think, down to the core. We learn new ways to think. We learn new ways to be. And then we start trialing and erroring our way forward into rebuilding and reconstructing. And I've been doing that for 30 years, and that's what this project is all about, doing that together. I will share with you what I have learned, and I hope to learn from you what you've discovered along the way to answer the question, what do we do now? Well, let's start here. If we want something different, we can't start in the same place. Hey, that's a better idea. Write that down. For a long time, religion's same place has been certainty. Religion's same place has been insularity. So I think we should start by asking hard questions, the kind of questions that broaden our understanding, which to me suggests Socrates. To get outside the thought walls of religion, this ancient Greek philosopher, very good place to start. Socrates inserted into the Western mind 2,500 years ago the imperative to ask hard questions, questions that cut through our assumptions, questions that expose our blind spots, questions that will invite us to learn the wisdom of other areas of human endeavor, other religious traditions. Socrates' gift to us, this art of question asking, will help us challenge religious insularity, myopic tunnel vision, so Socrates. But first, a warning. Asking hard questions is dangerous. People don't like it. For Socrates, questions cost him his life. For me, they got me excommunicated from my church. That was painful. Also freeing, pointed my life in a very good direction, but yeah, it was painful. For you, hard questions might stir up internal resistance. I've felt that. Am I even allowed to ask that? Am I allowed to even think that? But here's something we'll see a few times in this series, that if we are faithful to religious traditions, all of them, any one of them, of the primary traditions, hard questions are kind of our thing. Questioning hard and fast rules, questioning what is accepted, questioning the conventional, that is supposed to be us. Now, of course, we forget that. There's a strong human inclination to settle for what is conventional. We're quite comfortable with what is accepted and what is agreed upon. But hard questions are supposed to be our thing. Chasing down the truth that is under the conventional is supposed to be our thing. So, here are 3 timeless truths from Socrates that can help us think differently and rebuild our communities. Principles that might have in them universal truth and universal beauty and universal goodness. Let's see if they do. Here's Socrates' first big idea. The good life is the inner life. The good life is the inner life. It's not wealth and fame, power and status. It is the state of our interior beings. And virtue is how we know that our inner beings are well. Virtue is how we know that our inner beings are well. The well-tended soul bears the fruit of virtue. Truth, goodness, beauty, justice, compassion, humility, courage, so forth. The neglected soul, on the other hand, is easily distracted by all the usual culprits: power, fame, security, status. For Socrates, the relevant question was, is what we are chasing in our lives moving us toward truth, beauty, and goodness? Is what we are chasing in our lives awakening us to the inner life and the fruit of virtue. Are we becoming better people and building a better world? It seems so simple, but so much of religious tradition seems to have missed that very simple starting point. From the time I was a church kid, the critique of my religion was pretty consistently, those people are mean-spirited, those people are narrow-minded, those people are hypocrites. So one day it finally occurred to me, well, you know what, that critique has merit. I looked up and realized, oh, damn, we are that. So, Socrates, the good life is the inner life. The good life is the virtuous life. Chase that. So thank you, Socrates. If we build our communities around virtue instead of doctrine, instead of program, we could become places where we become better human beings. Sounds so simple, but we could rebuild on that. Here's a second big idea. Knowing what the good life is, knowing what the virtuous life is not easy. You might have heard the Taoist parable of the farmer. His horse runs away and the villagers say, that's bad, and he says, we'll see. The horse comes back, brings some wild horses back with. The villagers say, ooh, that's good, and he says, we'll see. The farmer's son breaks a leg, taming one of the wild horses. Oh, that's bad, they say, we'll see, he says. The army comes to the village to get the young men for war. His son has a broken leg, can't go. Oh, that's good, they say, we'll see. For Socrates, one of the biggest challenges to figuring out what the good life is, what the virtuous life is that we assume we already know, and we don't. We are the villagers. So often, the good life that we know is merely what others have told us is the good life. When I was young, I was dead sure that being a top student and being a top athlete and being a devout Christian made me a good person. I paid a steep price to be all those things, a price that ended up damaging my life and my soul, and I hate this, ended up damaging people around me. But try to convince me that I wasn't right, that I shouldn't work my hardest, I shouldn't be my best, I could not have been convinced. So, for Socrates, the relevant question is, what do I not see? What am I missing? Wisdom begins with not certainty. Wisdom begins with humility. Wisdom begins with questioning what we know. So, two potentially timeless truths, foundations on which we could rebuild spiritual community. The good life is an eternal reality, the virtuous life. Finding it is hard, and it starts with a posture of not knowing. Thank you again, Socrates. Build our communities on not knowing, on asking good questions that might help us become places where we become better people. Here's a third big idea. Okay, it is hard to figure out what the good life is. It is hard to figure out what the virtuous life is, but if we work diligently, it is possible to figure it out. Socrates was not a postmodern skeptic. He didn't say there is no truth. He said, you don't know what it is. Even though you think you do, you probably don't. Consequently, he prescribed practices. Practices designed to help us get closer to what is true and what is good and what is beautiful. Now, in the next episodes, we'll explore some of what those practices are. But for now, thank you again, Socrates, because if we build into our communities practices that transform us, those communities could become places we become better people. So again, one reason religion has collapsed, we have failed to listen. We have failed to learn from the fullness of human wisdom. So before we start rebuilding on the other side of religion's collapse, we have to start with that. And thank you again, Socrates, for showing us how. Start by asking hard questions. Start with 3 foundational principles. In the next episode, we'll talk about how. How do we build on those 3 Socratic foundations? And we'll see that they will help us learn from the insights across the board from philosophy and Buddhism and Judaism, from the sciences, from Christianity. So if you want to get notified when new episodes go live, go ahead and subscribe.